5 years after humanity left the Galactic Council, a crisis emerged that no amount of political maneuvering could solve. Hyunwoo received the encrypted message while reviewing agricultural reports in the Terran colony of Nova Sol. He worked as the director of the Human External Assessment Bureau. The title sounded boring on purpose, but his job was actually running Earth's intelligence service. He had been expecting a message like this for months. The pattern had been building. The message came from a Skriller intelligence operative named Chisva. She was one of the few Council insiders who still maintained contact with human intelligence services. The content was brief and devastating. Council Military Command has classified this information, but you need to know. The Devourers have returned. 3 frontier systems are already gone. Council forces engaged them at Theta Persei. We are losing badly. Hyunwoo felt ice settle in his stomach. The Devourers, an extragalactic hive-mind intelligence that had nearly overrun the entire galaxy 6 decades ago. The last incursion had been stopped only through a massive coalition effort that cost hundreds of millions of lives. Humanity had still been confined to Earth back then, completely unaware that their galaxy had nearly fallen to an alien intelligence that consumed entire worlds. He immediately opened a secure channel to Earth's Defense Ministry. We need an emergency cabinet meeting. Classification level Alpha Red. 6 hours later, Hyunwoo stood in a virtual conference room with Earth's most senior officials. President Chulsu appeared first. Her expression was grave and serious. Defense Minister Tae-yang materialized beside her, already reviewing tactical data on floating screens. How bad is it? Chulsu asked without wasting time on greetings. Hyunwoo pulled up the intelligence reports. Worse than the Council is admitting publicly. The Devourer scout fleet that entered Council space 3 months ago was not just reconnaissance. It was the vanguard of a full invasion. Current estimates put the main fleet at 40,000 capital ships. That is 3 times larger than the last incursion 60 years ago. What is the Council's fleet strength? Asked Tae-yang. Approximately 60% of what it was during the last Devourer War. They have been reducing their military budget for years to cover economic shortfalls caused by our departure. Worse, their tactical doctrine is badly outdated. They are still using formation strategies from centuries ago, strategies that humans helped them move past but they have forgotten or abandoned. Foreign Minister Sua leaned forward with concern on her face. They are going to ask us for help. They already have, Hyunwoo confirmed, not officially through diplomatic channels. The Chancellor sent a private communication through back channels. It was very carefully worded. He never actually uses the word help, but the implication is crystal clear. President Chulsu was quiet for a long moment thinking. Analysis question. Can the Council stop the Devourers without our assistance? Tae-yang pulled up tactical projections and simulations. No, Madam President. Our war game simulations give them a 17% chance of holding the Devourers at the Council's core systems. They have 0% chance of stopping them before the Devourers consume at least 40% of Council territory. That represents approximately 800 billion sentient beings. The weight of that number filled the virtual conference room like a physical presence. And if we help? Chulsu asked quietly. If we commit the full Terran defense fleet and share our tactical innovations with them, we project a 73% chance of stopping the Devourers at the frontier systems. Estimated casualties drop from 800 billion to approximately 2 million, mostly military personnel. So we have no choice but to help, said Sua. Even after everything they did to us over 3 decades, we cannot just stand by and watch 800 billion innocent beings die. Can we not? The voice belonged to Admiral Unji, appearing in the conference with the bearing of someone who had spent decades in military combat. I am not being callous, Madam Foreign Minister. I am being practical and realistic. The Council had 32 years to treat us as equals. They chose not to. They had 3 years after our departure to set aside their pride and work with us as genuine partners. They chose not to. Now they face an existential crisis and suddenly we are supposed to forget all of that history? This is not about the Council government, Chulsu said quietly but firmly. It is about 800 billion innocent civilians who had absolutely no say in how their government treated us. I completely agree, Unji replied, which is why I am not suggesting we refuse to help them. I am suggesting we make very clear what the price of that help must be. You want to use this crisis as leverage, Hyunwoo said, understanding her point. I want to ensure that if humanity bleeds to save council space, it means something permanent. That we are not just bailing out a failed system that will go right back to treating us as useful tools. Once the immediate crisis passes, we need structural change, not promises. The debate continued for hours. They discussed ethical considerations, strategic implications, and political calculations. All of it had to be weighed against the simple fact that millions of human military personnel would have to risk their lives to save a government that had spent decades disrespecting them and their predecessors. Finally, President Chulsu made her decision. We will help, but strictly on our terms. Draft a comprehensive proposal for the council. We will provide humanitarian aid and full military support in exchange for genuine, structural reforms, real equity in council decision-making processes, complete legal protection for human citizens and businesses operating in council space, and most importantly, a formal public apology, not for our benefit but on the official record, so that every species in the council understands what happened and why it can never be allowed to happen again. They will see it as extortion, Sua warned. Then they can try to survive the devourers without us, Chulsu replied firmly. I will not send human soldiers to die for a council that refuses to acknowledge its failures and make real changes. Not again, never again. The proposal was transmitted to Centrum the next day. It was accompanied by a private message from President Chulsu to Chancellor Mordak, delivered personally by Ambassador Ji-won, who had come out of retirement specifically for this singular purpose. Ji-won stood before the council the following day. The chamber was half empty as military personnel scrambled desperately to organize defenses against the devourer advance. Mordak looked ancient now. The weight of leadership during this existential crisis was visible in every slow movement he made. Ambassador Ji-won, Mordak said slowly, your president's terms are extensive, very extensive. They are necessary, Ji-won replied without hesitation. You are not negotiating for trade preferences or border adjustments, Chancellor. You are negotiating for survival. Not just the Council's survival, but humanity's survival too. The devourers will not stop with Council space. They will come for human space next. So we have every reason to help you. But we also have every reason to ensure that the galaxy that emerges from this crisis is one where humanity is finally treated as an equal partner, not a convenient tool to be used and discarded. Some of my colleagues believe we should reject these terms outright. They say the terms are deliberately designed to be humiliating. Ji-won's expression hardened. Humiliating? Chancellor, my predecessor, Ambassador Daewon, was told to be patient for 32 years. Humiliation is watching your innovations stolen, your citizens exploited under unfair trade practices, and your legitimate complaints systematically dismissed, all while being told you should be grateful for the opportunity. These terms are not humiliating. They are the bare minimum requirements for basic respect between equals. She pulled up casualty projections on the holographic display. Without human military intervention, you lose 800 billion lives. With our help, you might save 99% of them. All President Chulsu asks in return is that you treat us the way you should have treated us from the very beginning. As equals, as partners, as people whose voices matter. If that price is too high, if you value your pride more than your people's lives, then I suppose we have nothing more to discuss. Mordak was silent for a long moment. Then slowly, he began to speak with a heavy voice. You are right, Ambassador, about all of it. We failed you. I failed you personally. I told myself we were maintaining order and preserving important traditions. But the truth is much simpler and much uglier. We were comfortable with the status quo. Change was inconvenient, even when that change was obviously just and fair. Especially when it was just and fair. He stood with effort, his ancient frame straightening. I will present your terms to the full council, and I will personally recommend their complete acceptance, along with the formal public apology you have requested. Not because we are being extorted or blackmailed, but because you have earned it. You earned it 32 years ago. I am deeply ashamed that it took genocide at our doorstep for me to finally see the truth. Ji-won felt something loosen in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet. But perhaps the first small step toward it. Then let us save your people, Chancellor. All of our people. And afterward, we will build something better than what came before. The crisis reached its worst point during the Council's 4,872nd meeting. Nearly 3 years had passed since humanity left, Jamin stood in the shadows of the public viewing area. His diplomatic credentials still worked even though he had officially retired. He had served as an economic attaché during the final 10 years of human membership in the council. Curiosity had brought him back to Centrum. He needed to see how bad things had truly become. Very bad, it turned out. The Torvan plague has now infected 17 star systems, reported medical counselor Vexari. Her voice shook with strain. More than 2 million people have died. Our best scientists estimate the mutation rate will overwhelm our treatment capabilities within 6 months. The Vryn colonial fleet remains grounded, added navigation counselor Reth. Without reliable computer programs for the new stellar phenomena in the outer reaches, we cannot guarantee safe passage for ships. 3 centuries of expansion have completely stopped. Chancellor Mordak looks smaller in his seat now, as if all these failures had physically crushed him. And the economic projections? Senior economist Thalvin activated her display with obvious reluctance. Catastrophic, Chancellor. Council GDP has contracted by 19%. The sectors most dependent on human innovation have collapsed by 30 to 60%. This includes medical technology, advanced manufacturing, and computer systems. Meanwhile, human economic zones are growing at unprecedented rates. They are trading with non-council species and offering better terms than we do. She hesitated. And what else? Mordak demanded. And they are establishing their own defensive pacts. The Skriller Compact has signed a mutual defense treaty with the Terran Confederacy. The Yolim enclaves are negotiating similar agreements. 17 minor species have applied for associated partner status with Earth. This is a new designation that offers them human technological and military support without council bureaucracy. The chamber fell completely silent. Everyone understood what this meant. Humanity was not just surviving without the council. They were building a rival power structure. A new galactic order was forming, and the council was not part of it. Vextar broke the silence with an angry roar. This is intolerable. The council has maintained galactic order for epochs. We will not be replaced by a species that discovered faster than light travel barely 3 centuries ago. Then what do you propose we do? Asked Yenna with a tired voice. We have tried everything except the one thing that might actually work. We will not beg, Vextar hissed. No one said anything about begging, Yenna countered. But perhaps an apology. Recognition of our past errors. A genuine invitation for them to return under fair and equal terms. Apology? Vextar's crystal body turned dark purple with rage. For what? For maintaining order. For expecting a newcomer species to respect traditions older than their entire civilization. Jamin found himself moving before he consciously decided to do it. He walked down from the viewing area to the speaker's platform in the middle of the chamber. His human presence immediately drew everyone's attention. The atmosphere in the room changed instantly. Curiosity, hostility, and desperation mixed together in equal measure. Honored counselors, he began in a calm and measured voice. You have asked what you should apologize for. Allow me to answer, not as a diplomat but as someone who watched good people break themselves against your indifference for decades. Mordak raised a hand to silence Vextar's objection. Speak, Jamin of Earth. You never saw us as equals. Not really. We were useful, yes. Innovative, certainly. But in 3 decades of membership, not a single human was appointed to a senior council position. When we brought complaints, they were investigated by committees that took years to reach conclusions everyone already knew. When we proposed reforms, we were told to respect the traditional ways. He activated a holographic display. Footage appeared that he had compiled over many years. This is Ambassador Dewan at his first council address. He proposed a streamlined dispute resolution system. He was told it was premature. This is Ambassador Haywan 8 years later, proposing the exact same reforms. She was told humanity needed to understand council culture better. This is Ambassador Sunja, 14 years later, making the same proposal again. She was told to be patient. The footage continued showing a parade of human diplomats making reasonable suggestions, being politely dismissed, and then watching those same suggestions get implemented years later when proposed by senior council species. You took our ideas, our innovations, our solutions, Jamin continued, but you never took us seriously as partners. We were tolerated, not respected. We were useful, not valued, and when we finally had enough and left, you were surprised. That surprise, honored counselors, is the heart of your failure. You never bothered to understand us at all. He closed the display and looked directly into Chancellor Mordak's ancient eyes. You want to know how to fix this? Start by understanding that humanity does not need the Council anymore. We needed you once. We needed legitimacy, market access, and protection in a dangerous galaxy. But we have built our own legitimacy now. Our markets are thriving. And our military? 3 years ago, you had tactical advisors who understood modern warfare. Now you are fighting pirates using 1,000-year-old honor duel formations. You dare threaten this council? Vextar began, but Mordak silenced him with a sharp gesture. He is not threatening, the Chancellor said quietly. He is stating facts. Unpleasant facts, but facts nonetheless. He turned to Jamin. What would humanity require to consider reconciliation? Jamin shook his head slowly. That is not my question to answer anymore, Chancellor. But I can tell you what will not work. Half measures will not work. Token gestures will not work. Assuming that humans will come running back just because you finally decided to take us seriously will definitely not work. You taught us an important lesson. You taught us that we can thrive without you. That is a lesson we will never forget. He turned to leave the chamber, then paused and looked back. One more thing. The Torvan plague? Dr. Minsu published the complete solution in the Terran Medical Journal 4 months ago. It was open access, free for anyone to read and use. But your researchers were too proud to read primitive human literature. The Vryn navigation crisis? Engineer Bora released updated algorithms as open source code 6 weeks ago. But the Vryn claimed it was probably corrupted with backdoors and refused to use it. He let that information sink in. Let them understand what it meant. Humans are still trying to help. We are just not going to beg you to let us anymore. If you want our assistance, the knowledge is freely available. All you have to do is set aside your pride long enough to accept it. Jamin walked out of the council chamber for what he knew would be the last time. Behind him, the silence was absolute and heavy. 3 years of economic collapse, millions of deaths, and the stagnation of entire civilizations. And the solutions had been freely available the entire time. Ignored because of pride. That night in his quarters, Jamin received a message from Earth. His daughter Subin now served in the Terran Foreign Service. The Skriller Compact had formally requested human assistance in developing their medical infrastructure. They had approached Earth with humility, acknowledged their need, and offered fair compensation. What should we tell them? Subin asked. Jamin smiled for the first time in weeks. Help them. That is what we do. We help people, but make sure the contract is fair and equitable. Make sure the partnership is genuine. And make sure the respect is mutual. That is what the Council never understood. We never wanted to be superior to anyone. We just wanted to be treated as equals. As he closed the communication channel, he looked out at the Centrum skyline one last time. Somewhere in those tall towers, Council members were probably still debating whether they could afford to apologize. They still did not understand the fundamental truth. It was already too late for apologies to fix everything. The galaxy was moving forward without them. 18 months had passed since the humans left the Galactic Council. Nari sat in what used to be the human embassy building on the Council's home planet called Centrum. Now the building was a museum about the brief human era. She thought this was both insulting and somehow fitting. Nari used to work as a diplomat for humanity. Now she worked as an independent journalist, documenting everything that happened after humans left the Council. She carried a small recording device and spoke into it as she walked through the empty halls. The medical crisis on Torvan Prime has lasted for 3 months now, she said quietly into her device. The Torathi government refuses to admit that their healthcare system has completely collapsed without human medical technology. Their pride will not let them admit they need help. She walked past old photographs on the walls. The pictures showed human scientists working with alien researchers, human engineers teaching others about faster-than-light drives, human soldiers fighting beside Korath warriors during the Great Scourge invasion of 23A7. All the pictures had small signs that described humanity's contributions. During their developmental phase, Nari's communication device buzzed. A hologram appeared showing the face of her old friend Sung Ho. He used to work in the Trade Ministry but now lived on Earth as a consultant. Nari, you need to see this, Sung Ho said. His face looked worried. He sent her a file. The Vryn just lost 3 colony ships in the Hector Nebula. Same route they have used for 200 years. Nari opened the report and read quickly. Her eyes went wide. The navigation computer programs failed? The human-designed programs failed, Sung-Ho corrected her. Or rather, the Vrin copies of the programs failed. When you copy someone's computer code without understanding how it actually works, you cannot fix it when problems happen. The Hector Nebula created a new pulsar star last year. The original human programs would have adjusted automatically. The Vrin copies did not. How many people died? 43,000 colonists. Nari felt heavy sadness in her chest. She had known many Vrin people during her years as a diplomat. They were arrogant, yes, but they did not deserve to die because their government was too proud to pay for technology properly. Over the next few months, the same pattern happened again and again across council space. The Meklon Syndicate had copied human medical machines. These machines made medicine and treatments for sick people, but the copies started making medicines with small molecular errors. The first death was a noble's child on a core world. The child took what should have been a routine treatment and died. By the time they found the problem, hundreds of people were sick. The original human designs included safety checks, but the Meklon engineers had removed these checks because they thought they were unnecessary. The Tarathi Dominion's farms produced 40% less food. Without human farming consultants to help them, they could not adjust their systems to changes in the soil chemistry on colony worlds. Now famine was coming. The Korath Empire found that its military tactics were becoming outdated. Human advisors had quietly changed their entire way of fighting wars. Without that knowledge, Korath fleets went back to traditional honor duel formations. These formations worked fine against opponents who followed the same rules, but they were helpless against pirate clans that had learned from watching humans fight. In the council chamber, emergency meetings became normal. Chancellor Mordek looked older now. His crystal-like features seemed dull and tired. "We should negotiate with the humans," said Counselor Yenna from the Skriller Compact. The Skriller people had always been friendly with Earth. "We can offer them concessions and trade agreements." "And look weak?" Vextar hit his appendage against his desk hard. "The Council does not beg former members for help. We existed in this galaxy for 10 million years before humans left their planet. We will adapt now." 10 million years without human innovation, Yenna shot back. Without their medical science, their engineering, their military tactics. "Counselor, we are dying out here. The Torvan plague has spread to 3 more star systems. The Meklon medical crisis is getting worse. And the humans? Their colonies are doing very well. Their economy has grown by 47%. Their scientific publications have doubled. They are not suffering without us. We are suffering without them. Then we hire them as contractors," Shawnir suggested. "We hire individual humans, not their government. We offer high salaries and research grants." Nari was watching from the observer's gallery above. She smiled sadly. She had just received a message from Earth's new Ministry of External Affairs. Every single attempt by the Council to recruit human scientists, engineers, or consultants had been politely refused. Earth had made it very clear that any human who wanted to work in Council space was free to do so, as a private citizen. But the Earth government would provide no support, no protection, and no help if things went wrong. The message was clear. Come work for the Council if you want, but you are completely on your own. Fewer than 200 humans out of 80 billion had accepted such offers. Most were retired people or idealists, not nearly enough to fill the enormous gaps. That night in her small quarters, Nari made her latest report. "Day 547 after humanity's withdrawal," she spoke into her recorder. "The Council still does not understand what happened. They think this is about trade or money or political power. They do not realize that humanity did not leave because we wanted better terms. We left because we were tired of not being respected, and respect, unlike technology, cannot be copied or stolen. It has to be earned." She paused the recording and looked out her window at the Centrum skyline. In the distance, she could see the empty tower where the human embassy used to be. Its lights were dark for the first time in 3 decades. "They had their chance," she whispered to the empty room. 32 years of chances. Down below in the streets, protesters were gathering. Some were angry at their own governments for how they had treated humans. Others were angry at humans for abandoning them. But everyone was scared about what would happen next. The galaxy was changing. The old order was crumbling. And humanity, far away in their own space, was building something new without the Council. Nari wondered if the Council would ever truly understand what they had lost. Not just the technology or the military strength or the scientific knowledge. They had lost partners who genuinely wanted to help make the galaxy better. And partners like that were much rarer than anyone realized. The large metal doors of the council chamber opened with a soft hiss. Ambassador Daewon walked inside carrying a small data device in his hand. His face showed no emotion as he moved toward the center of the round room. Behind him walked two other humans. One was Hana, a woman who worked with the military. The other was Kyung, a man who understood money and trade. Around the circular chamber sat representatives from 47 different alien species. Some had scales, others had fur, and some looked like they were made of crystal or light. They all watched the three humans walk to the speaking platform in the middle of the room. Daewon placed his data device on the smooth black table. He looked around at all the alien faces watching him. Then he spoke in a clear, calm voice. The Terran Confederacy is leaving the Galactic Council. We are leaving today. We will finish all the trade contracts we already started. After those contracts end, humanity will go our own way. We wish the Council good luck in the future. The room became very quiet. Some of the aliens leaned forward in their special chairs. Others made strange sounds of surprise. A tall alien with a body that looked like purple crystal spoke up. His name was Vextar and he came from the Korath Empire. You cannot just leave like this. There are rules you must follow. There must be meetings and negotiations. Hana stepped forward. Her hand rested on her hip. People who knew humans well understood that this meant she was angry, even though her face looked calm. We followed every single rule, Hana said. Her voice was hard like stone. For 32 years we brought our problems to this council. 32 years. Every time we were told to wait. Every time we were told to compromise. Every time we were told to understand that other species needed time to adjust to our presence. Kyung touched a button on his device. Numbers and charts appeared in the air above the table, floating like ghosts made of light. Let me tell you what happened to us, Kyung said. When the Vryn people blocked our colony at Epsilon Drift, they said the space belonged to their ancient migration path. The council told us to share the system with them. We shared. When the Tarathi raided our food shipments and took our supplies, they called it a cultural tax. The council said it was just a misunderstanding. We paid money to fix the problem. When the Mechlon Syndicate copied our medical technology and sold it as their own invention, the council said that owning ideas was a primitive concept. We accepted this too. A bird-like alien with bright blue feathers stood up. Her name was Shanir and she represented the Tarathi Dominion. Those problems were all solved through the proper channels. Everything was handled correctly. Daewon smiled, but his eyes stayed cold. Yes, they were solved. But they were always solved in favor of species who had been in the council for thousands of years. Always. And humanity was always expected to be the reasonable party. Tell me, Counselor Shanir, how many times has your Tarathi Dominion been asked to be reasonable when you had a disagreement with another council member? No one answered him. The silence filled the room like thick smoke. Here is the truth, Daewon continued. Humanity brought new ideas to this council. We brought scientific knowledge and military strength. What did we get in return? We got endless paperwork. We got treated like children, and we were expected to be grateful for the chance to be used by older species. Well, we are done being grateful. He gathered his papers and devices from the table. His movements were careful and precise. The Supreme Chancellor spoke for the first time. His name was Mordak, and he was very old. He had lived for 800 years. His voice was deep and slow like distant thunder. Ambassador Daewon, perhaps we have not been sensitive enough to human concerns. Let us discuss reparations. Let us talk about reform and changes to our system. 32 years, Chancellor, Hana said flatly. You had 32 years to discuss reform. Every human diplomat who came before Ambassador Daewon said the same things we are saying now. You did not listen then. We do not need you to listen now. It is too late. The three humans turned and walked toward the exit doors. Daewon stopped at the doorway and looked back one final time at all the aliens sitting in the council chamber. The galaxy is very big, he said. Humanity has learned much from our time here. We are grateful for the education, but Earth and all her colonies will make our own path now. We leave the council to its ancient traditions and old ways. The doors closed behind the humans with a soft sound. Inside the council chamber, chaos erupted immediately. Representatives shouted at each other. Some demanded emergency meetings. Others made threats about consequences. But the humans were already gone. Their ships were lifting off from the docking stations, leaving the council station behind like seeds carried away by wind. In a different part of the station, a young man named Tai-hyun stood by a large window watching the stars. He worked as a junior analyst studying economic data. His boss, an alien named Ziegtal with purple crystal skin, stood next to him. "They will come back," Ziegtal said with confidence in his voice. "Humans need the council's protection. They need our trade networks. They need the legitimacy we provide. They will realize their mistake within a year or two and return to ask for forgiveness." Taehyun said nothing. He had been born on Mars and grew up watching humanity's frustration with the council. He had seen the look in Ambassador Daewon's eyes during that final speech. That was not the look of someone who would come back begging. Taehyun quietly began downloading all his research files to a personal storage device. Then he started writing a resignation letter. He would not stay here anymore. The humans were not coming back, and the galaxy had not yet realized what it had just lost. Outside the station, the last human ship activated its faster-than-light drive and disappeared into the vast darkness of space. The ship's trail faded like a memory that no one wanted to remember. The humans had walked away quietly. They had not shouted or made threats. They had simply left. And in the council chamber, the representatives were still arguing about what had happened, not understanding that the galaxy had just changed forever. The Battle of Sigma Octantis would be remembered forever as the turning point in galactic history. The moment when humanity's quiet departure from the council transformed from a political footnote into a fundamental shift in how the galaxy worked. Admiral Yoon-ji commanded the combined fleet from the bridge of the TCS Indomitable, humanity's newest and most advanced carrier. Around her, holographic displays showed the tactical situation with brutal clarity. 16,000 council ships were arranged in traditional defensive formations, facing a devourer horde nearly 3 times their number. "Council formations are holding position Beta 7, reported her tactical officer Jun Ho. "They are maintaining honor guard spacing between ships." Yoonji had to stop herself from cursing out loud. Honor guard spacing looked beautiful during ceremonial displays and military parades, but it was absolutely suicidal against an enemy that fought with perfect hive-mind coordination and cared nothing for individual honor duels. "Open a direct channel to Council Fleet Command," she ordered. Chancellor Mordak's face appeared on the screen. He had taken personal command of the Council flagship, which surprised many. Behind him, Yoonji could see the chaotic bridge of a warship whose tactical doctrine had not been updated in centuries. "Chancellor, you need to break formation immediately. The Devourers are going to exploit those gaps between your ships. We are aware of proper tactical doctrine." "Admiral," interrupted Councillor Vextar, who had insisted on maintaining military authority, despite his complete lack of modern combat experience. "The Council Navy has successfully defended the galaxy for epochs using these proven formations." "For epochs against enemies who followed the same rules you do," Yoonji cut him off sharply. "The Devourers do not care about your ancient traditions or your honor. They are going to punch straight through your center formation in approximately 7 minutes. Then they will systematically roll up your flanks from the inside. You will lose 40% of your entire fleet in the first engagement alone. That is preposterous and insulting." The Devourer fleet struck with terrifying precision. Yoonji watched grimly as the Council's center formation crumbled exactly as her computer simulations had predicted. Ships that had been carefully spaced for honorable single combat suddenly found themselves overwhelmed by coordinated swarm attacks from multiple angles simultaneously. Thousands of Council personnel died in the first 60 seconds. "Terran Fleet, execute tactical maneuver Helix 7, she ordered with complete calm. The human fleet moved as one unified organism. Destroyer squadrons provided electronic warfare support and jamming. Carriers launched coordinated fighter screens that moved in perfect synchronization. Dreadnoughts positioned themselves for overlapping fields of fire that created deadly kill zones. Where the Council fought as individual ships seeking personal glory and honor, humanity fought as one integrated system, seeking only victory and survival. The difference in effectiveness was immediately and dramatically apparent. Human fighter wings, coordinated through quantum-encrypted communication networks, tore into Devourer formations with surgical precision. Point defense systems networked across entire battle groups created interlocking kill zones that no Devourer ship could penetrate and survive. And most importantly, human ships never stopped moving. They constantly repositioned, refused to present static targets, and flowed around Devourer concentrations like water flowing around stones. Council flagship is taking extremely heavy fire, Junho reported urgently. Hull integrity at 40% and falling fast. Yunji made a split-second decision that would define the entire course of the battle. Battle Group 7, break formation and move to cover the Council flagship. Battle Group 3, collapse that Devourer pocket at coordinates 77 Mark 12. As human warships moved deliberately into harm's way to shield vulnerable Council vessels, she opened the communication channel to Mordak again. His bridge was now filled with smoke and emergency lighting. Chancellor, I am transmitting our tactical coordination protocols to you right now. Link your ship's computer systems directly to ours. Let us coordinate the entire defense. Trust us, this was the critical moment. The Council had agreed to human military leadership in theory, in comfortable meeting rooms far from battle. But theory was always easy. Practice meant admitting their fundamental inferiority in warfare, in actual combat, with death and extinction literally on the line. Mordak looked at Vextar, who seemed ready to object yet again. Then the Chancellor simply overrode him with a sharp gesture. Transmitting full access codes now, Admiral. The fleet is completely in your hands. Save us. The entire battle transformed within minutes, with human artificial intelligence systems coordinating fleet movements in real time. Council ships began fighting with an efficiency and effectiveness they had never achieved on their own. Human tactical doctrine emphasized survival over glory, mutual support over individual heroics, and ultimate victory over personal honor. Within 20 minutes of integration, the Devourer advance had completely stalled. Within 1 hour, it had begun to retreat in disorder. The final casualty reports came in 6 hours after the battle concluded. Council casualties were 14% of ships and 60,000 personnel killed. Compared to the projected 40% ship losses, it was nothing short of miraculous. Human casualties were 7% of ships and 35,000 personnel killed in action. But the strategic victory was far more important and lasting than the tactical one. Word spread instantly across all of Council space through thousands of channels. Humanity had saved them, not because humans had any obligation to do so, but because they chose to help. And in the process of saving the Council, humans had proven beyond any possible doubt that they were the galaxy's premier military power. 3 weeks later, a formal ceremony took place on Centrum. Hyunwoo attended as Earth's official representative, standing once again in the same council chamber where Ambassador Daewon had announced humanity's departure 5 years earlier. The chamber was completely packed. Every council species had sent high-ranking representatives, and in the observation galleries above, thousands of ordinary citizens from across the galaxy watched the historic proceedings with intense attention. Chancellor Mordak stood at the central podium. He looked older but somehow more vital and alive than before. When he spoke, his voice carried none of the condescension and superiority that had characterized council addresses for countless millennia. 5 years ago, humanity left this council, he began. At the time, many of us told ourselves it was their loss, their mistake, their failure to appreciate the great opportunity we had generously given them. He paused, letting the weight of those words settle throughout the chamber. We were catastrophically, shamefully wrong about everything. He activated a holographic display showing historical footage. Ambassador Daewon's final speech appeared, the cold anger clearly visible in his eyes. Ambassador Daewon told us on his very last day in this chamber that humanity had brought innovation, scientific advancement, and military strength to the council. In return, they received nothing but bureaucracy, condescension, and systematic exploitation. I personally dismissed his words as the bitter complaints of a disappointed party that simply did not understand how things worked. I should have recognized them for what they actually were, a completely accurate assessment of our profound institutional failures. Mordak's voice grew noticeably stronger. Humanity asked us for basic respect as equals. We gave them empty platitudes and meaningless words. They asked us for equity in decision-making. We gave them endless delays and bureaucratic runarounds. They asked us for genuine partnership. We gave them subordination and second-class status. And when they finally left after 32 years of patience, We told ourselves smugly that they would inevitably come crawling back, because surely they needed us far more than we needed them. He looked directly at Hyunwoo with ancient, sorrowful eyes. The past 3 years have conclusively proven the exact opposite. Every crisis we have faced, medical catastrophes, economic collapse, military obsolescence, has revealed the same fundamental truth. We needed you far more than you ever needed us. And yet when we faced complete extinction, humanity came to our aid without hesitation. Not because we deserved such mercy, but because you are fundamentally better than we were. The Chancellor took a deep, heavy breath. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I offer humanity a formal and unreserved apology. We were terrible allies, even worse friends, and completely unworthy of your loyalty and contributions. We squandered 32 irreplaceable years of potential partnership through pure arrogance and inexcusable short-sightedness. We understand fully that apologies, however sincere, cannot undo the harm we caused to your people. He stepped aside, and a new document materialized in massive holographic form above the entire chamber. Therefore, the Council has voted unanimously to approve the Centrum Accords, a fundamental and comprehensive restructuring of galactic governance. These accords establish humanity as a permanent senior member of the Council, with full voting rights and veto authority on all matters affecting human interests. They create genuinely independent arbitration systems for all interspecies disputes.